Kung Fu Dunk starts with a scene of an abandoned baby in a field near a basketball court. The infant was sobbing so loudly that a vagabond dressed in ragged clothes overheard it. Curious, the man went to investigate the noise and saw the baby laying on a pile of old tires, with a message nearby. He felt bad for the infant but knew he couldn't afford to raise him. As a result, he took the unfortunate infant to a kung fu school and left the baby with his friend, a master at the school. Day after day went along. Fang Shijie, the baby, has grown into a boy who is respectful of his teacher. But one night, regrettably, Fang saw his teacher die after casting a move that had the potential to transform the universe's conditions. As a result, Fang was forced to grow up without his teacher. When he became older, he felt his heart skip a beat every time he saw and heard a basketball bounce. Nonetheless, the atmosphere of the Kung Fu school shifted slightly once the teacher who raised Fang died. The once submissive child has turned rebellious, especially towards the headmaster, Wang Biao, who uses Fang as a punching bag all the time. Fang, amusingly, always claimed to be in agony whenever Wang displayed the strength of his fists in front of the students. Fang was, in fact, wearing an iron vest. As a result, no matter how hard Wang punched him, he felt no pain. However, Fang's ruse was eventually discovered. As a result, he had to spend the night on the streets without food. Fang played with several cans of soda while walking in the park in the evening, throwing and kicking them one by one. He moves right into the trash can with his kung fu. Without realizing it, an old man sitting not far from him witnessed what he was doing. Zhenli was the name of the man. They then approached Fang and attempted to track his movements. However, he consistently failed to dispose of the can in the trash. Frustrated, Zhen sat beside Fang, and the two of them began to talk. Their conversation was soon cut short by the sound of Fang's stomach growling. Zhen decided to set a challenge for Fang after noticing how hungry he was, in which Fang had to toss a coin into his mouth from a considerable distance. If Fang succeeds, Zhen pledges to reward him with a meal. Fang, as planned, got the coin into Zhen's mouth, right down his throat. Zhen had no choice but to uphold his word. As a result, he brought Fang to a French restaurant, where the expense of the dish startled him. Zhen couldn't afford the meal, especially when he needed to treat Fang. But Zhen had a plan to offer them both free French food by using his daughter, who worked as a waiter there. Zhen's daughter was already aware of the reason for her father's visit, implying that he was used to going to the restaurant to get food. She then served leftovers to Zhen and Fang, along with 2 glasses of wine. Then, while proposing a toast, Zhen revealed his huge plan for Fang. Leave him befuddled. Zhen brings Fang to a nightclub after dinner for a darts bet with the club's owner, Ahui. The outcome was predictable. Ahui's troops suffered a crushing defeat since Fang's throws were always on target. Zhen, who was overjoyed after winning a large sum of money from the bet, he made ensured that the gains were shared with Fang. But it appears that Ahui refused to accept defeat, especially considering he had already lost a significant amount of money. As a result, he directed his troops to assault Zhen. Fortunately, Fang is skilled in kung fu. He beat Ahui's troops one by one with his movements and defeated them in no time. The next day, Ahui and his team arrived to Fang's kung fu school. However, when speaking with the principal of Wang's school, a bald guy with spectacles who arrived with Ahui, Wang sought to relinquish control of the school. Of course, Wang first declined. He quickly changed his mind after being enticed with a chest of gold bars. Soon after, Wang assembled his pupils in the field and inquired as to the identity of the student who had caused disturbance at Ahui's nightclub. He demanded that the offender come out and acknowledge that his activities had harmed the school's image. A student abruptly rose up, not to confess, but to point to Fang and accuse him of being the source of the nightclub's commotion. Fang was beaten by several of Ahui's men in the middle of the night, it came out. field as many people, including instructors, looked on. Wang then kicked him as if that wasn't enough. Thrown out of school for slander. Fang, who believed he was being treated unfairly. Finally, he removed his uniform and left the school, which upset the instructors. Fang travels to the park in the evening to see Zhen and expresses his desire for vengeance on Ahui. Zhen attempts to soothe Fang by giving him a ball to toss in the garbage can at the park's end. And, once again, Fang excelled. Zhen took Fang to see Zhou, a dean at First University, after recognizing his potential. He proposed to Zhou that Fang join the First University basketball team. Not only that, but Zhen carefully prefaced his presentation with a tragic narrative about an orphan frog's existence in order to make it a news headline. Zhen's efforts were fruitful. At a press conference the next day, Zhen and First University representatives presented Fang, where he met the girl he admired. This is where he finds out about the girl. Lily plays basketball for him. Lily requested Fang to follow her during the interview. According to college custom, new recruits must defeat the team leader by at least 1 point. Lily immediately phoned the squad captain, who happened to be her brother, Wei Ting. Lily's phone call remained unanswered, but she could hear her brother's phone ringing in the background. She spotted Ting inebriated behind the press conference stage as she approached the sound source. Regardless, the fight between Fang and Ting started. Ting managed to score with a stunning slam while being watched by the fans. Fang, on the other hand, responded quickly with his long-range toss. Fang takes the newspaper the next day and furiously reveals it to Zhen. He was naturally enraged. Because the newspaper featured a piece on him, in which Fang was dubbed an orphan and had been tormented by the basketball team captain. Instead of being enraged, Zhen attempted to calm him down. They said it was breaking news that might make Fang famous. Fang apologized to Ting around midday after practice. The two of them then talked, and Ting gave Fang advice. In basketball, the player who controls the rebound has the potential to win the game. Fang obeyed the warning, but subsequently proved his throwing abilities, which never missed the mark. Fang eventually joined Ting's team at the following training session and promptly shown his ability, making Ting believe he had discovered the ultimate team weapon. But then came Xiaolan, a player who had been out with an injury for a long period. Lily welcomed Xiao's arrival and promptly introduced him to Fang. Xiao, on the other hand, was frigid toward Fang. The inaugural game of the First University basketball team began a few days later. Despite this, Fang sat on the bench from the start of the game to the finish. He only entered the game when Zhen persuaded Ting to do so. However, because he was still, Fang made a couple blunders as an amateur and nearly ruined his squad. Fortunately, Fang could make the naysayers go hushed in the last seconds with a long-range pass perfectly on target. Fang increased his practice time after the match. He requested Ting to teach even between rehearsals. He was a lock, especially since Ting had pledged. But Ting had the impression that Fang wasn't quite ready. Fang was eager, so he exercised alone at night without Ting's assistance. He sprang into the ring, gonna use his kung fu techniques to slam dunk. However, his jump was so high that he collided with a light and collapsed. The scene then shifts to the Second University basketball team's second game, when Fang is trusted to leap the ball. And, despite being underestimated before the game, he was successful in winning the jump ball. The ball was intended for Ting, who subsequently handed it to Xiao. Because to Xiao's dunk and the opposition players, the First University team scored the first 2 points. Whoever had underestimated Fang could only look in astonishment. Because to Fang and the players' outstanding play, the First University team triumphed by a landslide. Fang's skill and slam dunk abilities have garnered media notice since that encounter. The most recent information about him was always available in the local press. However, Fang and his colleagues were partying at a nightclub one night. Fang was contacted by a man who claimed to be his opponent in the final battle the next day. The guy then recommended that Fang quit First University and join his basketball team. But after obtaining no significant answer from Fang, the man handed him his business card and went. Not for long. Following that, Lily informs Fang that the mystery man is Li Tian, a former First University player who departed following a disagreement with Ting. Li Tian is a player that will do anything to eliminate Ting, even persuading members of Ting's squad to swap sides. He managed to harm Ting in the last season. She was having a nervous breakdown in her mental condition at the moment. And now Li Tian was making an attempt. Lily was concerned that Uncle Zhen could sell Fang to Li Tian's squad in order to obtain Fang on his team. But Lily's fears are unfounded since Zhen declines Li Tian's offer, leaving him badly battered. On the nightclub's second level, the man who accompanied Li Tian was balding and wearing spectacles. The same individual that brought Ahui to the Kung Fu school and got Fang kicked out. Fang was enraged after seeing Zhen's nose bleed and vowed to beat Li Tian and his gang. But Zhen abruptly stopped him because he didn't want Fang to fall into their devious trap. After all, Zhen didn't want to sell the hopes and goals he had instilled in Fang. Instead, Zhen frequently encouraged Fang to give his all so that Zhen wouldn't regret keeping him on his present squad. The big day has finally arrived. Li Tian approached his former captain, Ting, shortly before the game began, hinting that he would defeat Ting in that match. And Li Tian is really skilled at it. Li Tian's squad began playing almost as soon as the action began. They are not afraid to kick, shove, or insult their opponents. Fang has an opportunity to retaliate against Li Tian at some point in the game, so he trips his leg to the ground. But his acts enraged Li Tian and his pals to the point where their game became so brutal that Ting was injured. He was forced to be replaced by another player. The last match was a living nightmare for the First University squad. They were far behind, increasing the players' desperation. But then something unexpected happened. The stadium had an unexpected power failure, requiring the match to be postponed. Soon later, the bald man with spectacles approached Zhen to reinforce his offer to meet together. Fang. But Zhen remained firm, he refused to hand over Fang to them. Fang informed Zhen the following day that he had the impression that his parents had come to watch him compete last night. Culpo apex, he said. He said. Electricity in the stadium as payback for the bald man with spectacles who had deceived him. So Ahui's coming this time was not to cause trouble with Fang, but rather to wager $5 million. Li Tian's team was defeated by Fang's team. Zhen then shocked Fang by inviting the instructors from the school, his Kung Fu Academy. They were regularly watching Fang's performance on TV at the time. I'm quite proud of the situation. However, their school is in disrepair, since it has suffered from neglect. By Tianhao, the balding man with glasses who is seeking Fang, now controls it. Ting is still shocked by the circumstances of his battle with Li Tian in other areas at the same time. While Xiaolon visits his late girlfriend's grave and recalls wonderful memories, they had a good time together. He still loves her, which is why he rejects Lily's confession. That night on the basketball court, she expressed her thoughts to him. Lily was moved to tears by the refusal. Fang noticed her at that very time. He requested Lily to stop sobbing before eventually expressing his feelings to her. But Fang was terrible at expressing himself, which made Lily laugh. At the very least, Lily sent Fang an encouraging note after practice, which made him grin. The already postponed final eventually began. However, First University had to accept the loss of Ting Wei and Xiaolon, who were unable to participate due to injury. Fang was the only stalwart remaining. Seeing this, Bai Tianhao and Li Tian chuckled, certain that their team would win the contest. However, Fang's four instructors unexpectedly appeared to play for the First University side in the final match, terrifying all of Li Tian's team members. The match began, and the kung fu professors demonstrated their abilities, totally defeating the opposition team. Helpless. Bai Tianhao urged his subordinates to fight since his team was likely to lose. The four masters of kung fu. As a result, the basketball floor was transformed into a kung fu battleground. The activities of Fang's four instructors in the field drew media notice and acclaim from the audience. The four professors then delivered Fang a letter concerning Zhen's deposit in the locker room at halftime. It was a letter written by both of Fang's parents, according to Zhen. After reading the letters from his unknown parents, tears streamed down Fang's face. Fang, on the other hand, still has a game to play. Fortunately, Xiaolan and Ting Wei were able to return to play after the four teachers treated their injuries. Ting and his crew were successful. Display a smooth game and reduce the score gap. During the interval, though, Ting's body began to quiver. He was traumatized once more, and he had to give Fang the final pitch. Then, as they were ready to enter the field, a guy in a suit emerged out of nowhere, striking Fang on the leg. Using a baseball bat. Fang was in anguish as the man was immediately apprehended by the security on duty. The deception by Li Tian's team did not stop there. When Fang almost hurled the ball into the ring, the referee punched it off the field, startling the players and onlookers. Bai Tianhao, on the other side, celebrated his team's triumph, claiming that the foul ball entrance regulation only applies to his squad. This rule only applies to players, not referees. The offending referee was immediately disqualified. However, the match's score was manipulated. Li Tian's squad was the victor. To accept loss, the first university squad could only be surprised, sad, and weep. However, optimism was not completely destroyed since. Then Fang remembered his teacher's lessons on how to change the cosmos. Fang instantly used his magic trick to travel back in time to the closing seconds of the contest, when he threw the ball into the ring. On the second occasion, Fang purposefully missed his throw so that the ball might be grabbed by Ting and thrown into the ring. Fang's strategy was successful. Ting accepted Fang's pass and dunked into the ring, giving First University the victory. When the players celebrated, Fang was a little upset since he learned the two parents who had come to see him participate were Xiaolan's father and mother. Fang became well known and popular following the final match. At the park, I was chatting with Zhen. A bunch of females approached Fang and asked for his autograph. Zhen revealed at that point that the letter written by Fang's parents was all his creation. However, not long after that, they were visited by a mystery woman in a luxurious sedan. The woman then invited them to accompany her. The woman in the car claimed she was sent by Fang's parents to convey a message. A startling discovery is revealed. Fang's biological father is Wang Yiwuan, Asia's richest man. Zhen became concerned as a result of the knowledge. As a result, he immediately brought Fang to a store and purchased him a pricey suit to wear to his father's meeting tomorrow. Zhen joined Fang to meet Wang Yiwuan the next day. Wang then examined Fang's jewelry, which he had been wearing since he was a baby. The necklace was confirmation that Fang was really the kid he had abandoned in the past. Fang then inquired why Wang threw him away, to which Wang replied that he was bankrupt and being pursued by moneylenders at the time. Because Wang was concerned about Fang's safety, he was obliged to leave him with a note beside the basketball court. Fang fell into tears at hearing his father's confession. Wang then motioned for him to go closer, claiming he'd take him to London to inherit his business. Fang was escorted inside his father's chamber. He came to a halt and turned to Zhen, weeping, as he struggled to let Fang go. The video concludes with Zhen dining with his daughter in the rear of a French restaurant. But he was depressed and lonely following the death of his best buddy. Zhen's daughter was aware of his grief, but she was unable to stop it. Someone threw a penny into Zhen's wine glass, which astonished him. Fang ended up not traveling to London with his father because he didn't want to leave Zhen behind. Fang knew Zhen had been using him as a pawn. He was a tool for profit, yet he felt valued since Zhen had committed his aspirations to him. Zhen agreed. He was merely a loser who met a little demon who, thankfully, changed his life. And the film concludes with them both laughing and sobbing with passion. The moral of the story. This film teaches us that if we join a basketball team, we should make buddies with some kung fu masters. So, if you're having problems dealing with a challenging squad, you can ask the experts for assistance and come to play together. Nobody cares if the rules prevent outsiders from participating in the game.